SpaceX capsule undocks from space station to head back to Earth. The separated from the International Space Station early Friday, setting the stage for a fiery unpiloted plunge to splash down off the coast of Florida later Friday morning. A successful NASA announced it on Twitter. Departure confirmed. At 2:32 space station astronaut Anne McClain told CBS News in an interview from Space Thursday that the SpaceX program is the Boeing's expected to make its initial unpiloted test flight in late April or May are the first new human-rated, orbit-class spaceships built anywhere in the world since NASA's Space Shuttle made its debut nearly 40 years ago. Assuming the unpiloted Crew Dragon successfully completes its mission Friday, and assuming subsequent tests and required modifications go well, the first piloted flight of the spacecraft, a mission known as Demo 2, could be ready for launch in July. NASA has spent about $8 billion to date funding development of the SpaceX and Boeing commercial cruise ships in a bid to end the agency's sole reliance on Russian Soyuz spacecraft to carry astronauts to and from the space station in the wake of the Space Shuttle's retirement in 2011. Running more than 2 years behind schedule because of funding shortfalls and technical issues, the SpaceX Crew Dragon finally was. After a flawless, the station's 3 crew members McClain, Commander Oleg Kononenko and Canadian astronaut David St. Jacques opened hatches and floated inside the new spacecraft for initial inspections and to haul out about 400 pounds of crew supplies. Crew. For the trip back to Earth, the Crew Dragon will carry about 300 pounds of cargo, including a failed spacesuit component and 2 cold bags loaded with experiment samples. The capsule's hatched with an instrumented astronaut test dummy strapped into one of the Crew Dragon's 4 seats. The flight plan called for the undocking as the 2 spacecraft sailed 253 miles above North Africa. 40 minutes later, the cruise ship was to move about 4 miles from the lab, heading to a designated point in space where it was to fire its braking thrusters to drop out of orbit. First, then, a few seconds before 7:53 a.m., the Crew Dragon's braking rockets will fire up for a planned 15-minute, 25-second burn, slowing the ship and dropping the far side of its orbit into the atmosphere. A half-hour later, the Crew Dragon will descend along a northwest to southeast trajectory across the eastern United States. NASA routinely, company founder Elon Musk said during a post-launch news conference last Saturday that the capsule's hypersonic entry posed at least some concern on his part because the spacecraft's shape is not as symmetrical as the version used to carry cargo to the station. The rule. If all goes well, drogue chutes will slow the ship after it descends into the thick lower atmosphere. Its 4 main parachutes will unfurl and inflate around 8:42 a.m. and the Crew Dragon will drop to a gentle splashdown at 8:45 a.m. SpaceX recovery crews and NASA observers will be stationed nearby on a recovery ship named Go Searcher and a support ship, the Go Navigator. The Go Searcher's, too. Bill Harwood has been covering the U.S. space program full-time since 1984, first as Cape Canaveral bureau chief for United Press International and now as a consultant for CBS News. He covered 100, copyright 2019 CBS Interactive Incorporated. All rights reserved.
Raindrop, truck top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. I keep fucking on your bitch, yeah, that.